Welcome back. This might be a fast video. I'm going to try this. I haven't done one of these in a while, little deck tech. Now, somebody actually, forgot to tell you. Yeah, this episode is brought to you by a nice Chardonnay. Yes, a nice Chardonnay. Somebody actually commented on one of my videos that I made 4 years ago about, and the video is literally how to read a card, how to look at a card. And my wife said, hey, you should do more deck techs because they're what people like. So here I am. I'm doing a deck tech. But I'm going to kind of do a little tutorial, if I can, on deck techs. Now, I'm Commander Jank for a reason. I make janky decks, and this is a janky deck. But I'm also I'm a collector, and I am a competitive player. So with that said, I do have a couple of versions of different decks. For instance, this is my one-on-one deck, Turoral, and I love to play with this one, but it's only really good in a one-on-one scenario. If you play this in a 4-pot, it's not going to work really well. But one thing I wanted to bring up about that was anytime you have a commander deck, anytime you have a deck, it's consistently being updated. It's consistently being revised. It's consistently being looked at. And the reasoning is because sometimes a combo will come out years after. In this case, here's a card that came out in Zendikar, the original Zendikar. Quest for the Pure Flame, costs 1. It's an enchantment. Whenever a source you control deals damage to an opponent, you may put a quest counter on Quest for the Pure Flame. Okay, it's 1. You get to put a counter on it. Okay, I mean, my red burn deck is about burning. Then it says remove 4 counters for the Quest of the Pure Flame and sacrifice it. If any source you control would deal damage to a creature or player, this turn it deals double that damage instead. Not really the greatest card. I mean, it's okay, and I do use it in a budget deck that I have, but it's not really the greatest card out there for competitive-wise. Until all this new Phyrexia set came out with this card. All will be 1. Yes, it costs 5. Yes, it's an enchantment. And yes, it's mythic. Whereas this one is just uncommon. But this one says, whenever you put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, all will be 1 deals that much damage to target opponent, creature, an opponent controls, or planeswalker and opponent controls. So this one says whenever a source you control deals damage to an opponent, you may put a quest counter on Quest for the Pure Flame. And this one says whenever you put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, all will be 1 deals that much damage to a target opponent, creature, opponent controls, or planeswalker and opponent controls. All I have to do is poke somebody for 1 point, and it's a never-ending loop. It goes back and forth. It's never ending. So therefore, it's a infinite win. So it will be, as soon as I get one of these, it will be going into that red deck. Now, with that said, that is a specific red deck. It is only for one-on-one. And that's because the deck doesn't really work against 4 other players. I didn't build it to be a 4-pod or more player deck. There's no negotiation. It's just burn. For 4-player competitive, I use Aminatou, the Fate Shifter. This is the original version. Anyways, I very rarely use her ultimate, and please feel free to read through the card if you want to. I normally use her first and second ability. I have used her ultimate once. I was playing against somebody who had slivers and they were going off, so I decided to take all their stuff. But the whole purpose of this deck is kind of a control deck. There are infinite wins, but speaking of win con, there's 2 win cons right there. Alter the Brood and Demonic Consultation. This deck is meant to control the game, slow it down, have a little, and of course, tutor of everything I need. This deck is meant to be a grindy deck. Find the win cons, get your extra things, cards. But it's got so many different combos in it that sometimes, I've had combos like I put Spark Double in and I copied Aminatou and I didn't even think about it, but yeah, there's your win. these two go back and forth, and every time each one of them comes in, they make your opponents draw or discard mill a card. So that's one combo. I mean, there's plenty of other combos in this. Time Warp lets you get another turn. Panharmonicon, if an artifact or creature entering the battlefield causes an ability to trigger, if a permanent you control a trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Esper Sentinel, Venser, Mystical Tutors. I mean, it is a bit of a blinking deck, but it is also a bit of a kill deck. Not the greatest kill, but it is kind of fun to watch it bounce back and forth between different creatures. Phyrexian Metamorph, fun way of copying stuff, doing your thing, create a copy, blink, tribute mage, get things, vampiric tutors, crystal shard in case you just want to control, blink your own stuff. Soul Hoarder can get huge if you do it right, make things unblockable. And what's kind of fun about this one is if you make things unblockable, it really doesn't matter because that's not how you're going to win, but people instantly want to get rid of this, which makes them get rid of their strip mine on your Rogue's Passage, even though you probably aren't going to use it anyways. Abdel, just a fun one, puts extra creatures into play. Displacer Kitten. I actually blinked this one like 20 times in a game just to get 21 ones just so I can attack somebody for 20 points. Displacer Kitten, blank stuff, no one ever thinks about Logic Knot as a good commander card because of the X. But you're delving, so it really doesn't matter. You're going to go through your own graveyard. You're going to get rid of stuff, so you might as well. Knowledge Pool is another fun one to have in play. Kind of locks people out when you use that along with, where is it? Where are you? It's in here somewhere. Dranith Magistrate. Yes, everybody hates this card, but that's your own fault. It is only a 3. It dies to removal. Jace, and of course Trophy Mage, and of course Flicker Wisp. It's a blink deck, but at the same time, there's a lot of different ways of winning with this deck, and it really kind of irritates people. So that's kind of one reason why I like it. But that's my 4-pod competitive deck. Now my 2-pod, my player 1v1 deck has gotten me first and second place a few times. My 4-pod has gotten me third place, I think twice. It also got me eliminated from, I won't talk about that day. That was a really bad day, but anyways. The Chardonnay is just marvelous. This is another deck that's just kind of fun, and I'm not going to go into this one, but it was built because of the party mechanic. I like the Brocos. I like the background. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but especially when you're new to the game, 99% of the time you're going to have one commander. But there are commanders out there that say partner, and when you have a partner that has partner, or 2 cards that have partner, you can partner them together. This one actually has choose a background, so if this one has my commander, I get this as my background, which means I actually have a creature as a commander and an enchantment commander, which is kind of weird, but they work together, and they work really well together, and honestly, this card works so well with other stuff. I'm not going to go into that one, but I wanted to show you a little bit of jankiness. And what I mean by that is I took a deck, a precon, and I decided that I was going to change it, but I put restrictions on myself. So for instance, this is one of the decks that was one of the, what do they call it? Dungeons and Dragons decks. Adventures in the Forgotten Realm decks. It was not a good deck. The commander is Sephiris of the Hidden Ways, white, blue, black. Yes, it's Esper. I'm kind of a Esper person. It says, whenever one or more creature cards are put into the graveyard from anywhere, venture into the dungeon. This ability triggers only once each turn. And then, of course, down below it, where it says create undead, says whenever you complete a dungeon, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Okay, that's great and all, but when I went through the deck, it literally had 4 cards that ventured into the dungeon. And to me, that made no sense. Ugh. I forgot something. So when you have a card like this, it wants you to kill cards. It basically is telling you that when your card dies, you get to venture into a dungeon. Well, I didn't like that. I thought to myself, I needed to be able to venture into the dungeon other ways, because venturing into a dungeon, now these are the dungeons, there's actually a fourth one, but these are the dungeons. They're almost like having an extra card in your hand. You venture into a dungeon, you get to scry. Or you venture into the dungeon and you get to create a treasure token. Or, trapped entry. Now, how they work is when you venture into a dungeon, you go from one to the next room, to the next room, to the final room, and then you're done. You can go different routes. So that one has 2 routes. This one has multiple routes because you can go from Yawning Portal to Dungeon Level to Goblin Bazaar to Lost Level to... I cannot read that one. Muriel's Graveyard to Deep Mine down. You can kind of go all over, but you can only progress forward. But it's like having another card in your hand. And if you get to venture into a dungeon, it's like, okay, you get to venture into a dungeon more than once in the same turn. It's like having extra cards in your hand. So why wouldn't you do that? So I changed the deck, but I did give myself a restriction. And the restriction is very simple. The card had to be printed either in Dungeons & Dragons Forgotten Realm or in one of the Forgotten Realm precons. So there's no cards in here from any set that came out like Kamigawa. There's no Kamigawa cards. Now there are cards in the set that come from, for instance, here you go, Baleful Strix. Everybody knows it, but it was printed in the precon, one of the precons. So I put it in the deck. If it wouldn't have been put in the precon, if it didn't have that symbol, I would not have put it in the deck. Even if I knew, like let's say I knew I had Baleful Strix was printed in it and I didn't own it, I wasn't going to put it in. I had to be able to prove that it came from a precon, and that was kind of one of my own restrictions on these cards. So what I did was I kind of blew it apart a bit, and I changed just a little bit of it. She's my commander, and I very rarely cast her. I mean, because I don't like the whole dying triggers. I'm sorry, I like the dying trigger. I don't like it. You can only do it once, kind of thing. So I do cast her when I need to, but she's not integral of the system or of it. So all the lands, here's the basic lands. I didn't change any of them. They're still Forgotten Realms, basic lands. The what do they call it? The specialty lands. You can see they still have the same marks, the same set symbols. I could have changed these out so easily, especially these, commons and uncommons. I could have changed them out, but I chose not to. Keep them in. And even my dual lands that are, even the dual lands, I didn't get them from anywhere else. They had to come in the set. This is Forgotten Realms. Yes, it's a pre-release card, but this is a Forgotten Realms card. There you go, another Forgotten Realms card. Yes, it's the D&D looking one, but it's Forgotten Realms. And trust me, I would get rid of these 5 in a heartbeat if I could. There's a lot better lands out there. But I decided I was going to have a restriction. And the main reason is because when you're at the LGS, like last weekend, you have no idea who you're going to play with. In some cases, I literally sat down with 3 people I'd never met before, only to discover they're new to the game. So why would I play with them one of my competitive decks and destroy them and make them hate the game? Just play a pre-release. Turns out, as soon as I played the pre-release with them and they enjoyed it, what'd they do? They went back to the LGS and they bought a couple pre-releases. Yes, they were making their own decks, but they also learned from me that you can make the decks a little better, but get an idea. And the whole point is to follow the theme. The theme for this one, for this deck, is not let your creatures die. It's not. And that's one of the whole theme was venture into a dungeon. So I kept it that way. When it comes to the cards, they still had to have the same symbols, and I had to think, why is it there? I'm not a big fan of Vanish into Memory. I'm not a big fan of Bar the Gate, but Bar the Gate lets you venture into a dungeon. This one you get to roll a D20. It is from the set. I'm sorry, D10. It is from the set. And I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. D-Spark, Swords to Plowshare, Utter End. You kind of need, you need the removal to make the deck better. Oh, I'm sorry, to make the game fun. You have to have the removal. Now, when it came to the artifacts were kind of broken up a little differently. Good example. These are the mana rocks. And everybody who plays Commander knows you have to have rocks. I mean, blue, black, and white are not your biggest. They're not going to ramp you very fast, so you better have some mana rocks in there. There are ways to ramp, but there just isn't a lot in those 3 colors. So this one adds 2 mana of different colors. This one you get to get a land card. This one's kind of a little bit different. I did like this one. It's kind of fun, and it is foil. 2 to 9, create 5 treasure tokens. It's a mana rock. Okay, 10 to 19, you gain 3 life and draw 3 cards. Okay, maybe you get a draw. Maybe when you draw those 3 cards, you get a land. That's cool. And then 20, search your library for a card. If it's an artifact card, you may put it into battlefield. Otherwise, put that card into your hand and shuffle. Now, it's looking for an artifact card. Plenty of mana rocks to choose from. So might as well, choose an artifact. So they had to be, to me, they had to be good. You had to have at least some mana rocks. Some of these are just definites you have to have in. Some of them are not. I mean, I would not normally put this in any other deck. It's kind of a fun thing. I normally wouldn't put that into a deck. This one here, venture into a dungeon, activate only as a sorcery, costs 3. It's 3 and you get 1 out of it. Not my biggest fan, or not a big fan of it, but it follows the theme. So it's in there. Creatures. Baleful Strix. Cloister Gargoyle. Meteor Golem, Solemn Simulacrum, Burnished Heart. Now these 2 are mana rocks, mana dorks. If anything, they let you get a basic land. So to me, they're part of that cycle, even though they're creatures. These 3 were just, I needed something to kill big things. I needed something to kill things. The fact that it draws a card is even a big benefit. And then, of course, this one here was, as long as you completed a dungeon, Cloister gets +3, plus someone has flying. So it ventures into a dungeon. I'll keep it. It was okay. Regular artifacts, same thing, except this one. The only reason why this is in there is because I really wanted to have some kind of board wipe. And this was pretty much the best one I could find that fit the category. So yeah, it's in there. Would I normally play with this? No, I wouldn't. This card sucks. This card is bad. I could write a whole story about how bad this card is. I won't, but I could. Same as this one. Whatever. Some cards are okay. Some cards aren't. Wizard Spellbook's kind of fun to play. Copy that card and you may cast a copy. Venture into a dungeon again. Of course, keep your stuff protected. Movable. This one also ventures into a dungeon. So they're okay. But, when it comes to artifacts in this set, I figured, kind of keep them themed. If I'm not drawing a card, at least venture into a dungeon. If I'm not venturing into a dungeon and I'm not drawing a card, then hopefully I'm destroying something. So that was kind of the whole thought behind it. Sorceries. I kept the sorceries that were originally in... I'm sorry. I added this one. Fate's Reversal. Return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Venture into a dungeon, which is really good. But Victimize and Arcane Endeavor, they came from the set and actually liked them, so they worked really well. Then, of course, you had these 4 that were they're okay. Minimum Containment and Precipitous Drop both came from the pre-release. But they are also cards that are in the set. Enchantments. Nice thing about an enchantment in every deck is it gives you a static on the field. It gives you something, even though you're adding to your board state, you're not really adding to your board state because you can't attack with an enchantment unless it's my art enchantment deck. But anyways, Propaganda doesn't let you attack, but it does hold your opponents back, so it's kind of cool. This one lets you investigate. That gives you an idea. You get to draw a card. You create a colorless clue token and on it will say, pay 2, sacrifice the artifact, draw a card. And then it says sacrifice a clue, venture into a dungeon. So when you attack, you get to investigate. Every time you attack, you get to investigate, which means you can get 2 or 3 or 4 clue tokens, and each one of those clue tokens you get to draw a card, and when you get to draw a card you also get to venture into a dungeon. And the whole purpose of this deck is to venture into dungeons and see more, do more, have more of what you want to do. Precipitous Drop, Venture into a dungeon, and of course, enchanted creature gets -2, -2. It gets -5, -5 instead of as long as you've completed a dungeon. And I thought when I put this originally in there, the whole purpose was, what if one of my easy competitors has a Sun Titan 6/6? Well, if I can't destroy it, at least I want to be able to venture into a dungeon and, make it weaker. So this one, the fact that goes from -2 to -5 is awesome. So it's kind of what I did. And then, of course, that just puts the Sun Titan away for a little while. Now, when it came to the creatures follow the same theme. Enchantment, sorceries, instants, all the same theme. The theme was keep it based in the original idea of venturing into a dungeon with a precon and Dungeons and Dragons, and not varying from that. And trust me, there's cards in here I would definitely get out and change and never use in regular games. Good example of that one would be this one, Borrow of the Clan Umber. It only works really well in Venture into the Dungeon. And then when it attacks, return up to one card of your creature to mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield if you've completed a dungeon. So if you haven't completed a dungeon because you're not using Venture into a Dungeon, then this is pretty much a crap card. I would never use this in any other game. Hama, I probably wouldn't ever. Room abilities of dungeons you own trigger an additional time. Well, if you're not playing rooms, if you're not playing dungeons, then a 3-cost 2/3 is just a vanilla. Nadar, Selfless Paladin, enters the battlefield or attacks, venture into a dungeon, which is great. It has vigilance. Okay, it's 3. It's a 3/3. Other creatures you control get +1/+1 as long as you've completed a dungeon. This gives you a reason to, if anything, just do dungeons. Because it boosts boosts your other stuff. But even if you don't venture into a dungeon or you can't complete a dungeon, this is a vigilant 3/3, which is actually pretty good. And then, of course, Xandar, because I am a jerk. Not going to lie. I'm a big jerk. I like to play other people's cards and stuff, and this card lets me play other people's stuff. So, yes, I'm a jerk. It came from Forgotten Realm. It's in the color schemes. I could not think of a reason why not to put this in the deck, even though I could probably now come up with one. I'm not going to, because it's a really fun card to play when you put it down and everybody goes, oh, it's kind of fun. Okay, so on to these. These are utility cards. They all came from either the Forgotten Realms. So there's Sun Titan from the precon. Gloomstalker came from the precon. Shriek Maw, Plague Crafters, Gluttonous Cube didn't come from the precon, but came from D&D, Forgotten Realms. So these are all just utility cards. They either do something really weird, like this one here, enters the battlefield, dies, exile target permanent. It costs you 8. If you can't get rid of something at the cost of 8, there's something wrong. Gloomstalker has double strike if you've completed a dungeon. Okay, great. What if you haven't? Well, if you haven't, it's a 2/3 for 3, so it's just vanilla. This one has Evoke. So when it enters the battlefield, it gets to destroy a creature. That's awesome. Plague Crafter. When creatures die, each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker, and each player who can't discards a card. Okay. Gluttonous Cube. Take one of their creatures. Eternal Dragon. Just because it's 7, it's a 5/5. It's flying. It does let you bring things to your graveyard or from your graveyard to your hand. It's really expensive to do that, but it has plane cycling too. So if you really need a planes, there you go. Doom Necromancer. Doom Necromancer is awesome because, yes, plays a black, tap it, sacrifice Doom Necromancer, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Well, what if this just happens to be in your graveyard? Well, then you can bring it back from your graveyard to the battlefield, and it costs you 1 and a tap or 3, 4 and a tap instead of costing you 7. So there you go. Sun Titan. This can get you this back. Did you notice that? Yes. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And there you go, 3. There you go, boom. Karmic Guide. Protection from black, which is great. Echo, which sucks. And of course, when it enters the battlefield, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So sometimes you want to bring back one of those cards that people got rid of. This stack here, this is all draw cards. That was it, draw cards. I wanted something to draw cards. And I wanted to make sure I could draw cards. And maybe I couldn't draw more than one card every turn, but the whole point, the whole fun part of playing Magic is drawing cards and reading them. So draw a card. When it enters the battlefield, gain 2 life, draw 2 cards. When it comes into the battlefield, draw 2 cards. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. This one is recurring. So tap it, draw a card, discard a card. So real fun to loop. And then, of course, Flump. Defender flying, when it's dealt damage, you and target opponent each draw a card. This one's kind of fun when you have somebody who has like a 1/1 and they want to poke you, but you don't. You make a deal where you get to attack. Maybe the guy got goaded. You get to attack me. I'm gonna block it with my jellyfish, and we're both gonna get draw cards. So kind of fun. But these are the cards that have venture into a dungeon. Now, granted, originally I think it was only 4 total that even said venture into a dungeon. If I remember right, it was 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so maybe it was just 3 that ventured into a dungeon. And when you venture, the whole point is to venture into a dungeon. You want to keep venturing into dungeons. I'm looking to see if I'm missing one. No. Yeah, that one actually came with it. This one says if you enter, it does additional, but it doesn't say venture, and I think this one also came with it too. So it might have been those cards, those 4 in it that say venture into a dungeon. Well, the whole point is to venture into a dungeon, so why wouldn't I add more cards to venture into a dungeon? Why wouldn't I bring in even Displacer Beast, which is only cost you 3? Yu-Tang Fangblade is a great card to venture into a dungeon. Eccentric Apprentice, not the greatest, but you do get another card when when it enters the battlefield. You get to venture into a dungeon. So blink this one, but when you also get, and being of combat on your turn, if you completed a dungeon or one or more creature becomes a bird with the power base toughness 1/1 and flying until end of turn. This is a fun way of turning somebody's Sun Titan to a 1/1 for I'm going to attack you, but I'm going to turn your Sun Titan to a 1/1. Go ahead and block me. But yeah, so this is a jank deck, one of my jank decks. I have quite a few of them, but this is one of my jank decks that I toned it's just a toned down precon with a theme. And that theme is real simple. Where's my deck? That theme is real simple. It had to come from Dungeons and Dragons, for Adventures of the Forgotten Realms, and it had to come from one of the precons. Any one of the precons. It had to come, that was the only restrictions. It had to come from the precon, and it had to be a Dungeons and Dragons card. The theme was venture into a dungeon. So that's what I wanted. When it came to my other decks, like this one here, this was originally a precon too. Everybody who knows this deck, they know it was a precon, but I changed cards in it. And the whole purpose of changing cards in it is to make it better, to make it roll better. So if you're going to be playing with new people, this deck is great. Sorry, let me put that there. That's a great tier 4 deck. This one, maybe not so much tier 4. Maybe this one's a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, but still not a tier 8 or tier 9. But if you just look at some of the cards I've added, the removal, a win con, but it also gets me treasures because some of these are, cost a lot. Sorry. Idyllic Tutor. Some of the lands got changed. Some cards just suck. There you go. Ergivian Find. Return target artifact or enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. And the only reason why that one is in there, oh yeah, and you have to have Extenuate. The only reason why that card is in here is because of that enchantment. Where'd the other one go? Oh yeah, forgot. And that enchantment, Black Market Connections, not so much for the artifacts that kind of sucked in it, but the whole purpose of adding cards to the deck, swapping out cards, is to make maybe make it roll a little better. Back in Zendikar Rising, this one, add 1 mana of any color, mana only to cast clerics, rogues, warriors, and or wizards, or to activate abilities of clerics, rogues, warriors, or wizards. Why would you not put base camp in a precon that is about the party mechanic? It wasn't in there. It was like amazed me that it wasn't in there. Here you go. Keen Duelist. This one actually came from, it's a human wizard. This one actually came from another precon. Rankle. I mean, he's a rogue. Awesome rogue. So yeah, I did turn this deck maybe from a turn, Ruthless Technomancer, maybe from a 5, probably to 6.5, 7. The whole point is basically to make it so that it is a little bit more competitive, a little bit more fun, but not overwhelming. You know, I didn't want to make it overwhelming so that people quit, you know, playing. I wanted people to play, but at the same time, you know, I was just trying to have a little bit more fun, a little bit easier of a play. Hey, great card. And then, of course, why would you not have some of these cards like Godless Shrine? Especially when it came to the land base. I mean, I did have to fix some of the land base on this. I didn't like the original Commander either. Commander kind of sucked. But, yeah, I mean, why would you not fix the land base? Why would you not, you know, take a look at it and see what else you could do to it? And as you can see, it's not a lot. I didn't change a lot on it. Okay, so I think that's it. I think that's all the cards. Oh, little trick for you, just in case no one knew this. Turn the cards upside down, except for those. It's easier to see the set symbols. You can just run through things a little bit quicker. But yeah, I didn't change a whole lot in the deck. It's not like I blew it apart and totally replaced everything. I went through it and was like, okay, so what can I do? This card sucks, or this land base sucks, or I need one of those. Okay, so how many cards is this? Do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 24, 25. So there's 25 cards that I added. How many of those 25 cards are land? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 of the 25 are land to help fix the land curve. So that just makes, let's see, how many creatures did I put in here? Let's switch some of these around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There you go. 9 extra creatures, or different creatures. 1, 2, 3, 4 instants. 3 of them are destruction, some way of destroying or exiling, and 1 is to basically pull from the graveyard. A tutor, another way of killing, but in sorcery speed. A mana rock and an enchantment. So I don't feel bad about upping the power level of the deck. And I don't think anybody should. I think it's a great way of learning how to follow a theme and keep with it. And I actually recommend doing that if you can. Buy 2 different precons. You know, if you have the money, buy 2 different precons from 2 totally different sets. Maybe get one from Phyrexia, All Will Be One, and then get another one from Kamigawa, you know, and keep one of them really close to the original. I mean, you could keep one original if you really want to, but keep one of them really close to original. Don't change much on it. Maybe fix the land base and add a couple of cards. And then the other one, after you've played it a while, you know, like this one here, this is my closest to a total precon. I take that back. I do have one other precon that is a total precon. I've never changed anything on. It's a Warhammer 40k deck. Very rarely play it, but have a deck that's really close to being the original, that's not overpowered, that's really just a basic theme. And then take another precon and learn it, enjoy it, and then blow it apart and do what you can to make it maybe a version of yourself. This one is actually a lot of fun to play, but I've never won a game with it. And I think that because the main reason is not because it's the party mechanic, it's because as soon as you get the party mechanic online, everybody realizes what happens and you become arch enemy really fast. The one thing this deck does not have is a lot of ways of keeping itself safe. There's really no board wipes or separate board wipes. It's pretty much just get them out as fast as you can, build them up, and then attack. Well, that's my little tech breakdown. I hopefully will be doing another one of these. Maybe I'll break down one of my other decks. Give it a go. If you have any suggestions or want to see a certain deck, leave a comment down below. Very much appreciate it. I will be going to the pre-release this Friday. Hopefully, be able to see some of you there. Phyrexia All Will Be One is going to be a great set. I've been playing way before the original Phyrexian and Mirrodin sets. But I hope to see some of you there, and I hope we have a great time. Leave a comment down below and hit that thumbs up. Very much appreciate it. Thank you, and I will see you later.